Have you ever found yourself talking so much that you forget to listen? We live in a world that praises confidence, quick opinions, and being the one who knows. But sometimes, in our desire to be right, we stop growing. We walk into conversations ready to teach, not to learn, ready to speak, not to understand. And slowly, our hearts become like a cup that's already full, unable to receive anything new. You see, knowledge can be beautiful, but it can also become a cage. The more we fill ourselves with pride and certainty, the less space we leave for curiosity and wisdom. We start to confuse information with understanding, noise with truth, and experience with enlightenment. Yet the wisest people in history, from philosophers to monks, all share one secret: humility. The ability to say, "I don't know." The courage to stay silent long enough to truly hear. The grace to be taught, even by the smallest moments. Today's story is about that kind of wisdom. It's about a young man who traveled far to meet a famous Zen master, hoping to gain enlightenment. But what he received instead was a lesson that would shatter his pride and awaken his soul. So stay till the end, because this simple story about a cup of tea might just change how you see knowledge, learning, and the power of being humble. Long ago, in a quiet mountain village wrapped in mist, there stood an old Zen temple. Its wooden gates creaked with age, and the scent of pine drifted through the cool morning air. Travelers often climbed the stone steps that led to its courtyard, seeking the wisdom of the master who lived there, a man known for his calm eyes and few words. One day, a young scholar arrived from the city. He was bright, well-educated, and full of opinions. Books had always been his companions. He could quote philosophers and sages with ease. Wherever he went, people called him the man who knows. But inside, something restless stirred, a quiet dissatisfaction he could not name. He had read every book on enlightenment, yet he felt no peace. So he came to the mountain, believing that the Zen master could give him what his books could not. When he entered the temple, he bowed politely. But even as he bowed, his mind was busy rehearsing what to say, what to prove, what to ask. The master welcomed him with a gentle nod and motioned for him to sit. But before the young man could even settle down, words poured out of his mouth like an endless stream, theories, teachings, his own interpretations of truth. He spoke of meditation, discipline, the path to enlightenment. The old master listened in silence, not interrupting once. Only when the young man paused to take a breath did the master smile softly and say, "You must be thirsty after your long journey. Let's have some tea." The scholar smiled, relieved, at last, a chance to impress his teacher with more conversation. He nodded eagerly as the master turned toward the teapot. The master moved slowly, his every gesture calm and deliberate. He set the teapot between them, its steam curling upward like a living breath. The young scholar straightened his back, preparing himself for the great conversation he had imagined, one that would surely reveal the secret of enlightenment. As the tea began to pour, the master said nothing. The liquid streamed gracefully into the porcelain cup, golden and fragrant. The scholar, eager to fill the silence, began to speak again. He talked about meditation techniques, quoted scriptures, compared philosophies. His voice grew louder, his words spilling faster. Meanwhile, the master continued pouring. The tea reached the rim of the cup, and then began to overflow. It spilled across the table, dripping onto the floor, soaking the scholar's robes. Startled, he jumped to his feet. "Master!" he exclaimed. "The cup is full." "It can't hold any more." The old man looked at him, still calm, still smiling. Yes, he said quietly. Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and conclusions. How can I show you wisdom unless you first empty your cup? For the first time since his arrival, the scholar was silent. The sound of dripping tea echoed softly in the room. The mountain wind sighed through the open door, and somewhere a bell chimed in the distance. The young man stared at the cup, then at the master, his face flushing with realization and shame. His lips trembled, but no words came out. In that stillness, something inside him cracked, a small fracture in the wall of his pride. The master poured a new cup of tea, this time stopping just before it reached the brim. Now, he said gently, drink. The next morning, the mountain was still wrapped in fog when the young scholar awoke to the sound of a wooden bell. The master stood in the courtyard, broom in hand, sweeping fallen leaves from the stone path. Today, the master said, you will help me keep the temple clean. The scholar hesitated. He had expected meditation, deep conversation, or perhaps some secret mantra, not chores. Master, he began politely, I came here to learn about enlightenment, not to sweep the ground. The master smiled. Every path begins with a single step. Sweep and see what you find. Then he walked away. Reluctantly, the scholar began. The morning air was cold, and the broom felt awkward in his hands. The courtyard seemed endless. By noon, his back ached and his patience thinned. He watched the old master sitting quietly under a tree, eyes closed, as if lost in thought. This is pointless, the scholar muttered. How can sweeping teach me anything? Day after day, the task continued. He swept in the morning, carried water from the stream, stacked wood for the fire. The master never explained why. He offered no lectures, no lessons, only silence. At times, the young man felt invisible, ignored, almost mocked by the stillness around him. But something began to shift. At first, he noticed the rhythm of the broom, the soft scrape, the whisper of leaves sliding over stone. Then, the sound of his own breath, the smell of pine and earth, the feel of wind brushing his skin. Each morning felt slightly different, though the task was the same. One afternoon, as he swept, he noticed the sunlight spilling through the trees, catching tiny specks of dust that shimmered like golden rain. For a moment, he stopped and simply watched. The noise inside him, the endless chatter of thoughts and comparisons, fell silent. He didn't realize it then, but his cup was slowly emptying. Weeks passed. One morning, the wind carried down a single dry leaf that drifted and landed on the surface of the temple pond. It floated gently, spinning once before sinking beneath the still water. The scholar paused, broom in hand, and something stirred deep within him. The leaf had not fought the fall. It had simply surrendered, letting go, becoming one with the water. A warmth rose in his chest. His eyes filled with tears. He whispered, I see now. At that moment, the master appeared behind him, watching silently. The young man bowed low, his forehead touching the cold stone floor. He did not speak. There was nothing left to prove. The master placed a hand on his shoulder and said softly, When you first came, your mind was loud. You wanted to fill it with more knowledge. But wisdom is not poured in, it is uncovered, like clearing leaves from a path. The young scholar lifted his eyes, and for the first time, he truly saw the mountain, not as a place to conquer, but as a teacher. Every sound, every breeze, every task had been a lesson. He smiled faintly, whispering, Thank you, Master. That evening, as the sun began to sink behind the mountains, The young scholar sat beside the master outside the temple. The light was golden, gentle, and the air carried the faint scent of tea. Neither of them spoke for a long while. Only the sound of crickets and the distant rush of a stream filled the silence. Finally, the master poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to his student. This time the young man waited, patient, quiet, present. The master nodded approvingly. "Now," he said, "your cup is empty." The scholar lowered his gaze. "Master," he whispered, "I came here seeking knowledge, but instead, I found silence. I came here to fill my mind, yet all you did was take things away." The master smiled. "Yes," he said, "because wisdom cannot enter where pride already lives. The mind may be filled with knowledge, but only a humble heart can hold understanding." He pointed toward the pond where the leaf had fallen earlier that morning. That leaf did not resist the wind. The master continued. It did not try to control its fall or question its purpose. It simply let go and found peace in surrender. You must learn to be like that leaf, empty of resistance, open to what life teaches. The scholar nodded, tears glimmering in his eyes. "I see now. I was always trying to be right, to prove I understood. But I never truly listened," the master replied. "Most people do not listen to learn. They listen to reply. They defend what they already believe instead of making space for something greater. True wisdom begins the moment you stop trying to prove yourself." The young man felt something awaken within him, not excitement, but peace. A quiet realization that he had been chasing what could never be found in words alone. He bowed deeply and whispered, "Thank you, Master. I will keep my cup empty." The master placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Do so," he said, "and you will never stop learning." Knowledge fills the mind, but humility opens the heart. And only an open heart can truly see, that night, as the stars appeared above the mountains. The young scholar sat by the pond once more. The moonlight shimmered on the surface, and he saw his reflection, calm, still, and unburdened. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to be at peace with not knowing. At dawn the next day, the mountains awakened under a soft veil of light. Mist drifted through the temple gardens as the young man swept the courtyard, the same path he had once cursed for its monotony. But now, every stroke of the broom felt like a prayer. Every breath, a quiet reminder of grace. He looked down at the empty teacup resting on the step beside him. Its porcelain gleamed in the pale sunlight, simple yet perfect. He smiled, because he understood now that the emptiness of the cup was not a lack, but a space ready to receive. All around him, life unfolded effortlessly. The sound of birds, the rustle of leaves, the laughter of monks starting their morning duties. He realized that wisdom was never hidden. It had always been there, waiting for him to slow down enough to notice. We often chase greatness, thinking it lies in accumulation. More success, more answers, more control. But true wisdom, like the master taught, begins in surrender. When we stop trying to be impressive, we become teachable. When we let go of being right, we start to understand. So perhaps, the next time you find yourself speaking too quickly, defending too strongly, or believing you already know, pause and remember the cup. Empty it. Make space for silence, for listening, for humility, because only the empty cup can be filled again, and only a humble heart can hold the light of truth. The young man never stopped sweeping the courtyard after that, but now each movement carried meaning, a gentle reminder that enlightenment isn't a destination you reach, but a way of being present in every moment, with an open and empty cup. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who might need the same reminder that true wisdom begins with humility. Sometimes the greatest step toward growth is not learning something new, but unlearning our pride. Take a moment today to empty your cup, to listen, to breathe, to make space for understanding. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, stories that awaken peace, purpose, and presence, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join our community of souls, learning to see life differently, one story at a time.